Nepotism in the banking market was making headlines in the US today. According to reports, regulators have asked banking giants Morgan Stanley and Citigroup to release information on their hiring practices around the world. Victoria Fritz has been following this for us from New York. Victoria, what is being alleged here?
Well, what's being alleged is that there might be possible breaches of what's known as the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Now, what that essentially boils down to is whether or not US banks, when it comes to their dealings in China, were hiring the relatives of high-profile officials in order to gain and win business by putting pressure on those personal contacts, and that they weren't necessarily appropriately qualified for those jobs. Now, this actually came to light back in August when we heard from JP Morgan that it is under investigation, criminal investigation and a civil investigation into its hiring practices in China. But it's a notoriously difficult issue to prove because, of course, you have to prove corrupt intent. And when it comes to China, personal communications and personal connections are paramount. And what better contact could a US bank have than with the Communist Party itself?
So what happens now, Victoria?
Well, what happens now is that the SEC is in touch apparently with the Justice Department. The great irony, of course, is that the Justice Department actually held up one of these banks, Morgan Stanley, and said that they were doing fantastically well on their very rigorous compliance program when it comes to bribery. What we might see is we might see fines coming through, but when it comes to the market response, it's been fairly muted, and in fact, the markets here have all risen. They're all record highs for the S&P, the Nasdaq is at a 13-year high, and the Dow as well. So markets clearly not that bothered just yet.
Just yet. Victoria, thanks very much indeed. Victoria Fritz there. Well, how you define